Is the coronavirus a cure for an upgraded society? So let's talk about different kind of perceptions or realities we can shift to, or we can raise our awareness to. Now, first of all, let's talk about the world that is most familiar to us. Some like to call this the third dimension. It's our perception of the physical world around us. It's also using our 5 basic senses of perception. You know who they are: smell, see, touch, feel, that sort of things. But of course we also have higher states of perceptions, which I also will talk about. In this reality, we want to believe that what is presented to us, like let's say by mainstream media, that is the ultimate truth. Okay? Now, of course, within the media there might be some things that you could say, okay, kind of makes sense, what is happening and everything that's currently going on in our world. But is that the ultimate truth? So when I talk about my own personal life, I've been a truth seeker for many years. And that kind of had to do with the fact that I had some influences in my family who had, let's say, forms of narcissistic personality disorders. And what happened is that people who have these type of personality traits, they tend to gaslight someone. And when you're gaslighting someone, or you have been gaslighted by someone, what will happen is that you start to see, you become very uncertain about reality. You start to constantly doubt your reality. You doubt yourself and everything like that. But it kind of also creates like a split almost in your consciousness, like a fragmentation. Like you start to live in perhaps different realities. Now, I don't want to go over to this too deep because I want to stick to the topic of today's video. But another thing is, like, I'm also a Pisces. And if you know a little bit about, the zodiacs and everything, someone who has a Pisces personality, they also tend to live a little bit with both feet in different worlds. One feet here in this world and another feet more in a spiritual world. So I just want to give you this because now we can move forward on why I see these type of realities, but it's also because of what I've studied so far and researched so far, and I collected different kind of pieces and then I tend to make my own conclusions out of that. I'm not saying my conclusions is the ultimate truth. You should of course continue to seek for your own answers and then cross your own truth from that. But let's continue to talk about this 3D world. The 3D world is also survival consciousness, where we constantly react to that what is happening. Okay? In the 3D world we also experience things like isolation and separation. And these things are of course right now a fact. Okay? We are in isolation, we are in separation. And I feel I'm still lucky with being able to take my camera to the park, but in some countries that is not even allowed anymore. Of course I have to make sure that I keep my social distance and everything. But it would be horrible for me if I cannot get outside and where I have to stick inside my 4 rooms because I become nuts. I'm an outdoor person. So in this survival consciousness, we experience these things like the fear of death and the fear of unknown and everything like that. It's kind of like a very contracted state of being. So when people start to question what's really going on, they tend to seek for alternative answers, right? They then might stumble upon the so-called conspiracy theories, like what is really going on in our world. What if this whole virus thing is maybe a means to an end? And what is that end? And who have made that goal? And then perhaps you stumble upon the theories from, say, David Icke. And there are many other kind of figures in that kind of field who really like to dive deeper into, we have the 1% elite, they have an agenda, they create illusions for us, and they also create forms of gaslighting in our media. Because if we don't follow these type of rules that they create, then we are the one who is to blame, who is guilty, and things like that. That's kind of exactly how a narcissist would communicate. So if you dive further into, let's say, okay, we have a 1% elite, okay, they lack empathy, so their type of personality traits might be get closer to, let's say, a narcissist, a sociopath, or a psychopath, who are running the world, who are controlling the world. Their agenda might indeed be, let's say, like using this type of virus maybe to reduce the population and then move into a different type of economy, a global economy run by corporations, getting rid of fiat currency, and then create one global currency, getting rid of cash, okay, because they will say, cash will spread the virus, and all these kind of things. And what they say, maybe it may sound kind of make sense. But if you dive deeper into this, then you really start to realize, like, wait a minute, you know, maybe they want to enslave humanity, right? Now, this is an interesting topic, because we call this like more like a collective state of consciousness, right? And we can even go further, and that's really the purpose of this video, that we have to raise ourselves above that state. And let's call this the fourth dimension, right? Within the fourth dimension, we have our, you know, karmic loops, right? Let's say thousands of years, humanity was perhaps more spiritual aligned. They had a bigger metaphysical understanding of reality. And we had so much of great metaphysical powers. We were living in a place that was very attractive to different kind of species, entities, and also maybe species who were craving corruption. And because corruption occurred within a planet, maybe an event happened where we basically got descended into consciousness, and we fell down into this third dimensional states of survival, poverty, scarcity consciousness, where we experience things like isolation, separation, fear, and that sort of things, where we constantly live in a very unconscious, reactive way, where we're constantly using our reptilian brain of fight, flight, and freeze, right? We're living in fear. And perhaps that made us enslaved. So when indeed you look to the fourth dimension and you see really what's currently going on, and you feel like, you know, some external force out of there, a corrupt government or whatever, is trying to enslave me. Which might be one part of the truth. But I don't want to stick too long to this thing. I really want to move further. Because this karmic loop, you know, if you stay, let's say, into your fear and you hang on to, let's say, you know, your karmic imprints, you might get affected by it. So what's very important is that you do your own shadow work, right? It's getting really, you know, is to really dive deeper into the, you know, your own emotions and your own soul, to really to see, hey, you know, what is really the nature of my true being, and then raise your awareness. And then what you're doing, it's almost like you're clearing and you're purifying maybe your energy body. I call it the light body. You know, these are more like, you know, if you go into chakras, I'm a Reiki master, so I talk about chakras. And if you raise your own energy, maybe you can also raise your consciousness and start to realize, okay, these might be some things going on. Maybe it might not be all that bad. Maybe there might be also an advantage in the new systems that are being created, new economic systems and, you know, whatever. But if we start to emerge it, which, let's say, in higher state of consciousness, thank you, the state of, let's say, unconditional love, where we harness our satisfactions and fulfillments from giving and serving, because that creates a flow of abundance without any conditions or expectations, because this is something we have been living on our lives for decades, centuries. We do everything based on conditions and expectations. We could create indeed a different form of economy where we manage more our resources in a much more responsible way, and where we act more from a higher state of love and joy and experiencing different sorts of abundance. Now, to get to that state, what is very important is that you practice meditation. Because if you practice meditation, you move beyond this limited state of, the third dimension, your survival consciousness, and you start to realign yourself more or reconnect yourself more with your inner self, your inner being. I call it the essence, Maybe you call it your spiritual self, your soul. And through these visualizations or imaginations, you could experience realities that are still a bit unknown for us, unexplored. And this is something very, very fascinating. Of course, we might experience things like resistance in our logical minds, but once you have been through the experience, you feel like, wow, why is it that I have not experienced that before? Or why is it that I don't keep practicing this more often? And that's when you realize you are aligning yourself with the multidimensional aspects of yourself. You are remembering. That's why I like to call my other channel, the Unity Mind, a place to remember. So if you want to learn more about that, then feel free to go to the channel and go and experience these type of meditations. And also, of course, what you can do is, book a session with a certified Reiki master. You can do this on a distance and receive distant healing, where indeed you start to cleanse and purify and heal your energy body, getting rid of impurities and negativities, fears, anxieties. Because if you get rid of that, you become more centered, more grounded within your own self, your own inner self. And that what's coming at you will not longer affect you so much anymore. You become stronger, more confident, more empowered. Of course, to your own truth, to what is real for you. You see things, you feel things, you experience things that the majority is not yet able to experience. This could also create attraction, where you can attract like minds who want to learn something from you or benefit from what you have to offer, for example. So these are very beautiful times. In different realities, we might indeed experience forms of chaos. Personally, I feel like I've already been through a lot of chaos in my personal life over the last decades and so. And right now I feel like this is not totally new. Anyway, I'm going to leave that with this one for now. If you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe, where we explore different topics regarding to spiritual development, personal development, mindfulness, but also, of course, nature relaxation videos that can help you to relax and, reflect on these different type of topics. So I hope this is helpful, and hopefully I see you in one of my next videos. Take care for now. Bye bye.